Hello everyone, welcome to the session. And today we'll be discussing about CC exam questions. So here we have the first question which says which access control model specifies access to an object based on the subject's role in the organization. So when we talk about this access control, this is a very important component of security because this access control it determine how resources are accessed and who has the permission to do so. So here we have different types of access control, right? So the first one we see here is role based the first one we see here is role-based access control. So role-based access control is what? Here the access is granted based on the roles which are assigned to the user. That means permissions are associated with job functions, not about the individuals, right? So let's say if there is a let's say there is HR person is there in the organization. Okay, so they have the access to uh, you know let's say there is a HR in the company, so he has the access to the people document, right? The employees of the document. So this is the access he have based on his role. So that is role based access control. Then we have MAC is what? MAC is mandatory access control. So one thing about the MAC access control is that it is a centralized with strict policies. That means here the permissions are given based on security labels and levels, right? So this kind of access controls are used for confidential or top secret classification where you have to put a very high secure and you know where you have to put very high security. There we use this mandatory access control. Then we have the third one, that is DAC, and DAC is discretionary access control. So here what happened in the DAC, here the access permissions are assigned by the owner of the resource. Means if I'm the owner of that file, I'm the one who can decide who have the access to my file. So when we do file sharing, okay, that time we use this discretionary access control. Then we have the last one, that is attribute based access control. So in this one, access is granted based on attribute which are associated with user, resource or environment. So this one is dynamic and highly granular control, right? Here the policies are evaluated in real time. So let's say there is a healthcare system, okay, where we have to access the patient record. The in the in this attribute based access control, the access depend on user's role as well as location and time. In that basis, the access is given. Okay. So when we go back to this question and when we see here that here it's saying that the control model specify access to an object based on subject's role. So object is what? Object means something which you are accessing. That is a object. Subject means the one who has to access that object. Okay. So that is subject and object. So here in this option, the close thing, or I would say the correct answer is role based access control because the access is given based on the role of the subject in the organization. So correct answer is A, that is role based access control. Now let's move to the next question. And next question says which security principle state that a user should only have the necessary permissions to execute a task, right? So here we have options like privileged account, separation of duties, least privilege, and defense in depth. So when we talk about this least privilege, okay, least privilege is what? Least privilege is like here the access are given only to the resources and permissions that you needed to perform your job. Okay, means you will get the right amount of access or minimum amount of access with which you can complete your work. Okay, that is least privilege. Then when we talk about this privileged accounts, so privileged accounts are what? These are the accounts that have elevated permissions, right? Or you can say administrative rights are there in this account compared to the other standard user accounts. So this privilege account, they provide access to critical system, to configurations or any sensitive data, right? That is privilege account. Then we have separation of duty. Separation of duty is what separation duty means in this principle. It assures that critical tasks are divided among multiple individuals. Okay, multiple people are doing the same tasks, multiple people are doing the same task, and it helps in preventing the fraud or error. So no single individual has complete control over all the aspect of the task, right? Like you have seen this thing in the financial system, right? Where employees there, they initiate a payment request, then another employee will be there, he will approve the payment and all of these things. So that is separation of duty. Then we have defense in depth. Defensive in depth means here you have multiple security layers, right, which helps in protecting your sensitive information like your asset, your information, anything. Even if one layer fails here, the other is there to provide the protection. That is defense in depth. Right. Now, if we go back to the question, it says which security principle state that a user should only have the necessary permission to execute a task, right? They are talking about necessary permissions with which you will complete your task. So necessary permissions are given and you can complete your task. That is least principle, means you will get the permissions and with that permissions are enough to fulfill your task, right? So the correct answer is C, least privilege. Now let's move to the next question. So next question says, which type of access control leaves a central amount of access control to the discretion? Again, now we have the next question, which says which type of access control leaves a center. We have next question, which says which type of access control leaves a certain amount of access control to the discretion of the object's owner or anyone else authorized to control the object's access, right? So here I'm the owner of the file. Let's say I make the MS file, and I'm the one who will decide who can have the access to that file. So here the answer itself there in the question. So the correct answer is A, DAC, that is discretionary access control. All right. Now let's move to the next question. And here the question says, what is the primary difference between mandatory access control and discretionary access control? So here we have the option and we have to talk about the primary difference. So first option says in Mac, security administrator define user roles, while in DAC, user roles are defined by the object owner. Okay. Then we have B, in Mac, security administrator control access permissions, while in DAC, user roles are managed by security administrator. Okay. Then we have C, in which it says in Mac, access permissions are managed by security administrators, whereas in DAC, object owners decide. Now we have third option, which says in Mac, access permissions are managed by security administrators, whereas in DAC, object owners decide access permissions. Right. Then we have option D, which says in Mac, object owner decide access permissions, while in DAC, access permissions are managed by security administrator. So among this, we have to find out the difference. So the first one, it says that in Mac, security administrator define user roles. And in DAC, user roles are defined by object owner. So no, this is not the one, right? Then we have in second one, which says in Mac, security administrator control the access permissions, and in DAC, user roles are managed by security administrator. So this one is correct, but this one is wrong, right? Security administrator control the access permissions, but here the Mac user roles are managed by security administrator. That is not correct. Then we have this C1, which says in Mac, access permission are managed by security administrator, which is correct, right? Whereas in DAC, object owner decide access permission. So in DAC, I'm the object owner, I'm the owner of the file, I'll decide the permission who can have the access, right? So among this one, C is the correct answer. So the correct answer is option C. And if we go back again to DAC, here it says in if again we go to option D, which says in Mac, object owner decide access permission, that is totally wrong because in Mac it doesn't happen. So the correct answer, as we already say, is option C, right? Now let's move to the next question. In next question, it says Jane is a security administrator setting up access for a new employee who works in the manufacturing department. Jane makes sure to enable the employee's access for the manufacturing area but not for the parts storage area. So what best describe the principle Jane is applying, right? So here we have these three options. The first one is principle of authentication, two rule. We have this option where we we have this option here. First one is principle of authentication. Then we have 2% rule. Then we have need to know and we have least privilege. So from this question, we can say that here they are saying that Jane has given the permission that enable, uh, you know, okay, let's do it again. Jane is a security administrator. Okay, let's do this question again. Um, let's move to next question, which says Jane is a security administrator setting up process for a new employee who works in a manufacturing department. Jane makes sure to enable the employee's access for the manufacturing area, but not for the parts storage area, which what best describes the principle Jane is applying. So here the question itself is saying that Jane is the one who is setting up the access for the employee, right? And what Jane make sure that the employee have the permissions which can make that person do his job, but that person don't have the access to storage area because that is not the part of his job, right? So among this option we can directly say that the correct answer is least privilege, because what least privilege does, it give you the permissions what are needed to fulfill the job, like, right? Means least amount of permissions are given to you, but that amount of permissions are enough so that you can fulfill your job. So the correct answer is D. But if we talk about the other options also, so the first one we have principle of authentication. So here we are talking about the authentication part, means here the user ensure that they are authenticating themselves, they are authenticating their ID, right? Their identity, right? Like how they can authenticate is they can use password, biometric, multi-factor authentication, all these things to authenticate themselves. So that is the principle of authentication. Then we have 2% rule. This 2% rule is what? Here what happened? Here the in this rule what happened? It required that two authorized individuals approve or perform an action to ensure the accountability and prevent error or misuse. Means 2% are there to do the same job, like in nuclear facility, launching a missile requires simultaneous approval and action of two officers. Like one person cannot make the decision, so we need 2% to do that. That is 2% integrity. Then we have need to know. So need to know is what? Need to know is the access. Need to know is what? It is like a access to information or resource is restricted to only those who require to perform their duties, right? So here need to know principle, it minimize the risk of unnecessary exposure, right? So to protect your sensitive information, to reduce the attack surface, we can apply this need to know rule, right? So here these are the so here these are the other meaning. So here the correct answer is least privilege, right? Okay, so let's move to the next question. So we have this next question which says Joey works in XYZ Corporation. Every day he needs to log in to this website with his username and password to start working. In this scenario, password is an example of what? So we have this so we have this identification. So we have this identification, authentication, authorization, accounting, right? So this is what? This is IAM. So before starting this, let's talk about IAM. So IAM, in this, we have these components. Identification means here you have, so here you have your ID. Okay, you are presenting your ID. This is a process of this is a process where you give your ID to the user, network, or device, right? Like each user is there. Whenever they have to access any application, any file, they have to give their username, like username, right? Like employee ID or device name, anything. So that is identification. You're identifying yourself. Then we have authentication. Authentication is a process where you claim that you are that person whom you're claiming to be. So I have given my ID xyz at the rate of gmail.com. That is my identification. I have provided this ID of mine in my organization. How I'm authenticating myself? I'm authenticating myself with the help of password. Okay, let's say password is there. So I use this password and I authenticate myself. So this is a process of verifying the claim identity to ensure it's genuine. How I do that? I do that with the help of password, right? And in this authentication only, we have this factor of authentication, something you know, something you have, something you are, right? Something new, something you know is password or pin. Something you have is like mobile devices, smart cards. Something you are means biometric, like fingerprints and facial recognition, right? Then we have authorization. So authorization means once you get the process, then we have authorization. So authorization means once you are inside that network, now what permissions you have, what access control you have in that organization, what work you can do on that organization, that is authorization. And then we have accountability. So accountability means the process of tracking and logging the actions, whatever is performed by the users, by device or system within that network. Or here, once you get authorization, right, what things you are allowed to do in the organization, what things you are doing, and accounting means when they keep the track of these things. So this is IAM, right? Identity. This is what IAM, like identification, authentication, authorization, accounting. So here what happened? Here the user, what he is doing, that employee, he wants to work in the organization, right? So here what happened? Joey, he work in this organization and he has presented his username and password. And in this scenario, what password is? What is the example of password? So password is what? Part So password is what? Password is authentication, means he is claiming whom he is, right? By giving the password. So the correct answer is B, authentication. Now let's move to next question. And next question says, what is the Next question says, what is the ultimate objective of proper separation of duty? We have already discussed what is separation of duty, right? So here it's saying what is the ultimate objective of it. So we have these options. First one says to prevent employee from disclosing sensitive information. Second one says to ensure access controls are in place. Third one says to ensure that no single individual can compromise our system. And second one is there which says, and fourth one is there which says to ensure that audit trails are not tampered with. So here, when we talk about separation of duty, what it does, it makes sure that error won't be there. And it makes sure that no single individual have the permission to perform all the tasks. Right. So among this option, the correct answer is C, which says no. Among this option, we have correct answer C, which says among these options, we have correct answer C, with among these options, the correct answer is C, to ensure that no single individual can compromise a system. So the correct answer is C. Now let's move to next question. So we have this question which says, which type of access control primarily utilized in high security environment? So whenever we talk about high security environment, okay, we have mandatory access control. Why? Because in the military, in research centers where we need high security, there we always use this mandatory, because here we have labels, we have levels. Based on that, we give the security. So wherever you see high security environment, among this option, MAC is the one which provided. So the correct answer is A, MAC, which is mandatory access control. Now let's move to next question. And next question says, what term is used to describe the situation where someone inherent expended permissions that are not appropriate for their role in role-based access control? Okay, so here we are talking about role-based access control, and we have these options like privilege. We have these options. The first one is privilege creep. We have role deviation, access overflow, permission anomaly. So here the correct answer is privilege creep. What is privilege creep? Privilege creep is like it occur when an individual they have okay, so if I'll give you a very simple example of privilege creep. So it's like, let's say there is some person, okay, Joey is there, okay, one person is there, and he works in a marketing, in a organization. He have in charge in the marketing, and he have permissions in the marketing department based on his role, right? Now what happened? Joey was a good employee. He was permitted. Now what happened? Joey is a good employee. He's promoted to different department. He was very good with, dealing with people and everything. So now he went to sales department for sales purpose, right? And now he have all the roles which he needed in the sale department. He have all the permissions and everything. But what happened once he uh, but what happened once he reached in the sales department? He has the roles of the sales department as well as he have the previous roles as well. His previous roles are not removed from him. So here what happened? Here Joey have access control in marketing department as well as sales department, right? So here it happened privilege creep, right? Means when an individual have permission and privileges over time that exceed what is actually required in their current role. So current role is salesperson, but he also have the access control of marketing as well, which is not needed for his work. So that is privilege creep, right? So the correct answer is A, privilege creep. And if we talk about role deviation, so here what happened? Here, this is a situation where user action or assigned permission deviated from the defined it responsibility, right? Whatever scope they have in their assigned roles, that is role deviation. Then if we talk about access overflow, so access overflow is what? This is like a condition where a user is granted more access permissions than they require to perform their job, right? This is same, like similar to the concept of privilege creep, right? Here in access flow, it increases the risk of data misuse, insider threats, or unauthorized access. And if I give you example of access flow, let's say there is an employee, right? Uh, it's similar to access flow. So that is access overflow, right? Then we have the last one. Okay, so then we have the last one, which is permission anomaly. So here what happened? This occur when permission assigned to a user, group, or role do not follow the organization's established access control policies or deviate the normal patterns, right? So that is permission anomaly. Here, the correct answer is privilege creep, right? So based on this, the option is A, privilege creep, which we already discussed. Now let's move to next question. And next question is talking about single sign-on. Okay. So single sign-on is what? Single sign-on is like an authentication method where the user has to access, like let's say the user wants to access multiple application or system, they can access it with the help of single set of credentials. So once you authenticated, user do not need to log in again for every application that they want to access within the same session, right? So that is single sign-on. Here, the question says, which of the following best describe a key benefit of single sign-on? So we have option A, which says it allows user to create multiple password for security. So it's like, no, this is not the correct option. I'm just cutting it. Then B says it reduces the number of authentication steps for user across multiple systems. Okay, so that seems a bit okay, so I'll keep it. C says it encrypt all user data on every application. So this is not the best benefit, you can say. It is another thing. Then we have D, which says it prevent unauthorized access by requiring separate logging for each application. This is definitely not. Okay, so among this option, the correct answer is B, which says it reduces the number of authentication steps for user across multiple systems, because once you authenticate yourself, you can use the other applications as well. So correct answer is B. Now we have second question. Now we have next question, which says Prince is working as a finance consultant in a Prince is working as a finance. Okay, so now we have next question, which says Prince is working as a finance consultant in an organization. He Okay, so we have next question, which says Prince is working as a finance consultant in the organization. He was on vacation for 15 days. After 15 days, he could not join the office, and there was no further communication with HR. So what is the best practice you what is the best practice you would like to recommend to the enterprise? So here we have these options, which says disable the account, delete the account, call and check why he's not joining, modify the policy. So among these options, we have the correct answer, which says disable the account. Right. So correct answer is A, disable the account. Why delete the account is not the correct answer? Because in this situation, deleting the account is irreversible. Right. And maybe it will result in the loss of important data, finance record and anything, so we cannot delete the account. And about call and check why he's not joining, uh, this is a reasonable step for HR to take, but it does not directly address the security risk which is associated with an inactive account, right? So that's why among this option, C is also not the option. And the third one, which says modify the policy, so modifying the policy may be relevant as a long term if the incident highlight gap in the existing process. Here nothing gap is there, so we don't need modification. So among this option, the correct answer is disable the account. Okay, so correct answer is option A. Now let's move to next question. So we have this next question, which says, which of the following is not a goal of the crime prevention through environmental design, CPETD philosophy, right? So this CPED philosophy is what? This is a multidiscipline approach which aim at reducing crime and improving public safety by designing the building in such a way that it has effective use of physical spaces that can, reduce in criminal opportunities, right? So that is the environmental design. So you design the building in such a way that you will give lights uh, in an area where it's visible, right? You will make the pathway in such a way that a person should walk in that area only, they cannot go other part. Like this kind of things you will use to maintain the security, right? So here we have the option. Option A, natural surveillance. Option B, natural detection. Option C, natural access control. Option D, natural territorial reinforce. So among this, the correct answer for this one is option B, that is natural detection. Why? Because this CPETD, it focus on using environmental design to reduce crime and make the security better overall, right? So the correct answer is D. Okay, because everything is completing here. They are using these processes. They are using natural surveillance, natural access control, everything. But why they are using it? They are using, okay. So now the next question is, which of the following is not a goal of the crime prevention through environmental design, CPET philosophy, right? Okay, so the next question is, which of the following is not a goal of crime prevention through environmental design philosophy? So among these options, we have option A, B, C, D. And when we talk about this CPED, what? CPED is a CPTED is a multidisciplinary approach that is aimed at reducing crime and improving public safety by designing the environment. in such a way, like they design the environment, the building in such a way that it will improve the public safety. So the main philosophy behind this CPET is that a proper design and effective use of physical space should happen that can reduce in criminal opportunity. So here they are saying what is not a goal of this. So natural surveillance is obviously a goal. We have to design a space to maximize visibility, right? So this is a goal we have. Natural access control, like structuring the pathway, entrance, exist in such a way that it guide the people and limit access to the area, right? Which helps in reducing the opportunity for crime. So obviously natural access control is also an area. Natural access control is also a part of it. Then we have natural territorial reinforcement. So using physical devices like fencing, landscaping to define ownership and make space look cared for. So without which discourage unauthorized access, right? So natural territorial is also a part of it. We have this natural detection, which is not a goal for it. So the correct answer is B, natural detection. This is not recognized in this goal, in the goal of CPTED. So the right option is B, that is natural detection. Okay. Now let's move to next question. And next question says, which of the following best describe the relationship between role-based access control and rule-based access control? So here we have to talk about role and rule. So role-based access control and rule-based access control cannot be used together. Role-based access control define rules, while role-based access control defines roles, while rule-based access control define rules for those rules. Role-based access control define roles, while rule-based access control defines rule for those roles. Then we have then we have then we have option C. Role-based access control is more restrictive than rule-based access control. And then we have option D. Rule-based access control replace role-based access control in all scenarios. So here the correct answer is option B, because role-based access control define the roles. Okay, what role a person have in the organization? With that, you will get the access to the organization. On the other hand, rule-based define the rules for those roles. Like whatever rules you have, right? That let's say you have a rule that you have to enter in the organization at 9 a.m. Till 6 p.m., right? So this is a rule our organization have, right? Which is given to those roles. So that is rule-based access control. So the correct answer is B, that is role-based access control define roles, while rule-based access control defines rules for those roles. Now let's move to next question. So we have this next question which says, which access control model enforce the most restrictive access based on security level and classification? So here this thing, security level and classification is there. So based on this, which model have the most restrictive access? So here the correct answer is B, that is mandatory access control. Now let's move to next question. And the next question says, an organization is concerned about the risk of a car driving from the parking lot through the entrance of the building. Which of the following security measure would best help address the concern? So we have biometric, we have role-based, we have badge system, we have bullets. So the correct answer is bullets, because this is what these are the physical security that measure uh, this is a physical security that is designed to prevent vehicle from entering in the restrictive areas, like a building entrance. So the correct answer is option D. They act like a barrier to protect against vehicle-based threats, right? So here the correct answer is option D. Now let's move to next question. And this next question says, what is the most important feature of biometric identification system? Okay, so among this, authorization, storage requirement, accuracy, reliability. So for biometric identification, why we use it? Because it is accurate. It has this accuracy. So this is the most important. So this is the most important feature of a biometric identification system, that is accuracy. So accuracy is the primary goal to correctly identify or verify individual based on their unique biological traits. So accuracy determine the system ability to distinguish between the legitimate user and imposter. So here accuracy is the correct answer for this one. Now let's move to next question, and next question says, what is the following steps are part of the identity and access management IAM lifecycle? So we have provisioning, review, revocation, authentication, authorization, accountability, identification, authentication, auditing, provisioning, deprovisioning, monitoring. So here, when we talk about the steps which are the part of this IAM lifecycle, so option C, provisioning, review, and revocation is the steps and is the correct answer. When we talk about this provisioning, what happened here? It is a process of creating and assigning access rights to user, right? So here, what happened? A unique identity is created for the person, and also the roles are defined. Role, permission, access privileged. Everything is given to the person based on his roles, right? And when we talk about this review, so review is what? Review is like a periodic assessment of a user, like whatever rights and permissions he have. So just review happen where assessment happen that he have proper, permission rights which align with their current role, responsibility, and organization's policies. So that is review. Then we have the last one, which is revoke. So revoke means, revocation is what? It is a process of review. Revocation is what? It is a process of removing access, rights, and privileges from the users, right? So terminate user account, right? Revoke access to application system and resources. All these things happen here. So here the correct answer is option A, that is provisioning, review, and revocation. Now let's move to next question. So next question says, an organization security team is focusing on enhancing the physical security of the data center. They request an entire. Now let's move to next question. So an organization security team is focusing on enhancing the physical security of the data center. They request an entrance design where two doors are installed, and the first door must securely close before the second door can be opened. So what is this design an example of? So this design is an example of man trap. So man trap is what? Man trap is a physical security which is designed to control access to sensitive areas like data center. So it has a small space with two doors where one door must securely close before the second door can be opened. And this ensure that only one individual can enter at a time and provides an additional layer of security. Right. So the correct answer is option A, man trap. And we have other options like turnstile, airlock, security gate. And if we talk about this turnstile, this is what? This is a mechanic. This is a mechanical barrier which is used in public places to control the flow of pedestrians. Right. Then airlock is what? Airlock is a mechanism which is used in environments like laboratories or airspace to prevent air or contaminants from passing between spaces. That is airlock. Then we have security gate. So security gate control vehicle or personal access, but does not incorporate the two-door interlock design characteristics of a man trap. So that's why the correct answer is A, man trap. So with this, we have finished our questions. Thank you.